What if I told you fighting ability isn't random and it could be engineered? As both a fighter and an engineer, I've noticed something fascinating. There are 5 hidden laws that determine whether a fighter unlocks their true fighting potential or whether they kind of get stuck below their real capability. And after decades of coaching and analyzing fighters through an engineering lens, I've broken down exactly how these laws work. And these aren't just training tips, they're the fundamental principles behind every successful fighter's development. And if you miss any one of them, your progress will always be limited. In the next few minutes, I'll show you all 5 laws and how they work together in a complete system. And the first one explains why most fighters never develop any real knockout power. Fighters, welcome back to another episode of Heatrick Muay Thai Performance. So number 1 is the force principle. And most fighters think that power comes from the striking limb, when science shows that's completely backwards. Classic Soviet research on boxing shows something fascinating. Beginners generate force like this. Only about 17% comes from leg drive, 45% comes from trunk rotation, and around 38% from arm extension. They're firing a cannon from a canoe. But knockout artists, they generate about 39% from leg drive. That's more than double the amount that the beginners use. 37% from trunk rotation, and only 24% from arm extension. Now that's firing from solid ground. And it means 2 things. 1, technique matters more than effort. And 2, lower body strength contributes more to punch force than upper body training, even for punches. And here's where fighters break that system. They tense too much throughout rather than whipping. They're skipping sections in that kinetic chain and focusing too much on the striking limb. And using resistance bands for striking technique teaches exactly the wrong pattern. And I've got a video that deep dives into this if you want to learn more about that. And research also shows that elite strikers follow a specific pattern. They tense, coast, and then tense again on impact to create effective mass, like hitting with a steel rod rather than a foam noodle. Think of strikes as energy transfer systems. Generate force from the floor, relax and connect through the body segments, and then throw through your target and stiffen on impact. Start treating your strikes like throwing systems and not pushing systems. The force comes from the ground up and not the limb out. But this is just one part of the puzzle. Generating force is just the start. Number 2, the progression principle explains why some fighters look better every time you see them and others look the same year in, year out. Most fighters think that progress is about intensity. They bounce between going all out and burnout. But real progress isn't about how hard you train, it's how you stack your training. Random training creates random results, whereas structure creates consistency and performance gains. It's like building a skyscraper. First you lay that foundation, and then you systematically add floor by floor and wait for the concrete to set in between to build up even higher. But most fighters do the equivalent of building the penthouse first or rebuilding the same floor over and over. The key is what I call the soak and stack method. So you soak your body in a stimulus long enough for your body to adapt to it, but then not so long that it gets stagnant. And then you stack progress on top of that rather than starting over each time. Whereas most fighters follow a cycle of training hard for a fight, peaking temporarily, crashing afterwards, starting over from scratch, and then repeating that endlessly. And I've broken that cycle by typically using 4-week training blocks. Why 4 weeks? Because we can have 3 weeks of progressive loading and then 1 week as a strategic reset. And that's long enough to soak and adapt, but short enough to stay fresh and to peak for multiple fights when needed too. And using this stepped progression approach, each block builds on the last. No massive crashes, a consistent upward trend and sustainable over the long term. So start thinking of training in blocks rather than just individual sessions. Plan 4-week cycles, progress systematically, include strategic resets and stack improvements. In our programs, we use a 4-stage system that ensures that you're continually building your performance piece by piece rather than going around in circles. You're always going to be moving forwards. And this leads us into the 3rd principle, how you integrate these improvements into fight performance. Number 3, the integration principle explains why some fighters work incredibly hard but can't make it work in the ring. Most fighters try and train everything all at once, or they train things in isolation, and both of those approaches fail. It's like you try and spin too many plates. Everything smashes. But by using a modular approach, you can build complex systems while ensuring each component works individually before adding the next. Your fighting ability is exactly the same kind of system, and it's why I use a 4-stage integration system. Number one is foundation and assessment. You reset the fatigue, you clear up injury niggles, and comprehensively test mobility, performance, and optimize your training schedule. Number two is strength and power. You build a functional strength foundation, you integrate explosive power, and introduce maximum speed and develop the aerobic engine. Number three, performance integration. You increase fight-specific movement patterns. You develop speed strength, improve power transfer efficiency, and optimize relentless energy systems. And number four is peak performance. You optimize for maximum speed, power endurance, fight-specific conditioning, and strategic peaking for competition if you fight. And if you don't compete, this is where you feel all results of everything you've been working on coming together at the top of your game. And this 4-stage system, it stacks and repeats for consistent long-term progress. Here's where fighters typically fail: training everything all at once, not building on foundations, jumping straight into advanced methods, and losing base attributes while chasing new ones. But when fighters follow this systematic integration, something interesting happens. Progress starts to become predictable. They stop stalling and having periods where nothing works. It's about layering attributes in the right order. Build the foundation, add raw capability, convert to fighting skills, optimize for performance. Each layer supports the next. And to tie back to that force principle, here's something else I've noticed. I often find that overloading movement patterns in the weights room, so for example, hip dominant or knee dominant movement patterns, is a great way to build not only the raw athletic qualities, but also to teach that coordination and timing. And note, I say movement patterns are not Muay Thai technique. When I work with fighters in their S&C sessions, I often find that the additional load in explosive movements helps them feel that kinetic chain better than when it's unloaded. Just like jumping rope with a sufficiently heavy rope so that you can feel the revolutions of the rope and time the jumps to match that, as opposed to a rope that's just way too light. You just can't feel where that floaty piece of string is. Start thinking about your training as modular training blocks. Establish basics first, add complexity gradually, integrate systematically, and maintain foundations while progressing. And that's exactly why I build programs in progressive phases. So each phase builds on the last, ensuring you're not just building random attributes, but building a complete fighting system. But proper integration is only half the battle. Number four, the efficiency principle explains why some fighters make huge gains only training 3 times a week, and others hardly seem to improve training twice a day. Most fighters think that more training equals better results, but analysis shows us something different. Efficiency isn't about quantity, it's about targeting the right variables at the right time. In engineering, we use the Pareto principle, or 80-20 rule, where 20% of the inputs create 80% of the results. Your training follows the same law. The trick is finding your critical 20%. Think of it like Super Mario. Most players rush to finish the level, but skilled players collect the most valuable coins. They know which power-ups matter. They don't waste time on low-value actions. And fighting is the same. Rushing to advanced methods is like missing the fundamentals. And collecting the right coins is like building real ability. Each level builds on the last. There's no shortcuts to sustainable progress. And training efficiency has 2 key components. One, priority targeting. That's identify your critical 20% and focus your energy there first. Filter out the low-value actions and adjust as you progress. 2, sweet spot training. Train long enough to adapt and stop before diminishing returns. Shift your focus at the right time and maintain while building new attributes. Here's where training efficiency breaks down. When you're training everything equally, when you push past the sweet spot, if you're skipping fundamental stages, and if you're chasing advanced too soon. And I've seen fighters making better progress using 3 targeted sessions each week rather than just 10 random ones. It's not about volume. It's about targeting what matters most right now. Every training input has a response curve. There's an initial rapid improvement. Then there's a peak efficiency zone before diminishing returns and eventual stagnation. Smart training means riding that peak efficiency zone. Start by asking, what's my critical 20% right now? Am I soaking up the basics fully? Where am I wasting energy? And what can I simplify? Your training should systematically target your priority attributes while maintaining what you've already built. No wasted effort, no missing the fundamentals. But even perfect efficiency needs one more thing, a way to measure and adjust your progress. And that's where the final principle comes in. Number 5, the feedback principle explains why some fighters just keep improving while others seem stuck for years. And surprisingly, it has nothing to do with talent or just working harder. Most fighters think they know if they're getting better just by how they feel, but feelings lie. Without measuring, you're just guessing, and usually guessing wrong. If you can measure it, you can improve it, and every system needs a feedback loop to optimize performance, and your fighting ability is no different. It needs constant calibration. Think about a self-driving car. It constantly measures its position and then adjusts based on feedback, and it course corrects in real time. And it makes sure it arrives to its destination efficiently. But most fighters are driving blindfolded. They've got no measurements and are making random adjustments. They hope they're on course and then wonder why they miss their targets. Real feedback comes from multiple sources. Number 1, performance testing with regular mobility checks, strength benchmarks, speed and power measurements, and endurance markers. Number 2, technical analysis such as video review, coaches' feedback, training partner insights, fight performance review, and strategic assessments like 4-week training block reviews, full training cycle testing, recovery tracking, and limiting factor identification. That's your 20% priorities there. And here's where fighters typically fail. They avoid measurement and take feedback personally. They ignore subtle signals and wait too long before making adjustments. When fighters start measuring properly, something interesting happens. They stop becoming surprised by their performance. Everything becomes predictable, sustainable, controllable. Every 4-week training block should include weeks 1 to 2 progressive developmental loading, week 3 maximum performance testing, and week 4 recovery and review. This creates a continuous feedback loop. Start building your feedback system. Record baseline measurements. Film training sessions, welcome all feedback, test regularly, and adjust quickly. This is why our programs like Heavy Hitters include comprehensive testing and progress tracking, because real improvement requires real measurement, not just hoping that you're getting better. So these 5 principles, force, progression, integration, efficiency, and feedback, form a complete system. Miss any one, and the others can't work properly. Master them all and improvement becomes inevitable. Now you understand the 5 principles that build real fight performance. There should be one question left. Where should you start? And that's exactly why I put together a Muay Thai performance readiness scorecard. It's a free assessment tool that looks at your current performance level and identifies your critical limiting factors. It shows where you're currently leaking performance and reveals your highest leverage and next steps. And it only takes a few minutes. Think of it like a diagnostic tool, like a check engine light for your fight ability. It shows you exactly what needs attention first, and you'll find a link to that scorecard below. It's free, it takes just a few minutes, and it will show you exactly where to focus your training for maximum results next.
Thanks for listening. If you found this valuable, please like, subscribe, and share with someone else it could help too. Please give the podcast a review or comment below. We'd love to hear from you. As always, you can visit heatrick.com for more Muay Thai performance podcasts, videos, articles, and guides. Catch you next time.